I've got the power. Whoa, 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 whoa. It's getting kind of heavy. 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 Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor, and I'll be your host as we go through all the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and notorious modern horror films. If you're new to the channel, recommend you check out our new introduction video. There's a link to it in the description below. It'll give you a pretty good idea of what the horror movie syllabus is usually about, which is taking a look at a particular subgenre of horror and then picking 3 movies from that subgenre to explore. But this is our Is It Syllabus-Worthy series, where I take a recommendation from you guys in the comments, a movie I've never seen before. I watch it, and then I let you know what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, and ultimately, is it syllabus worthy? Is it worthy of being on the horror movie syllabus? Today's recommendation is a movie called The Power, and it comes from our good friend Sarah, aka the Rose Bride, longtime friend of the channel, longtime personal friend, and is an interesting one because she dropped this in the elevated horror subgenre video. So I already know that it's something she considers elevated horror, and she did a really good job of explaining the movie's central premise or setup and its setting to me, but stopped short of actually spoiling the movie's, plot and what happens, its ending, and more importantly, didn't spoil the themes that it's trying to explore. Because when we talk about elevated horror, we're talking about movies that are kind of allegorical and exploring certain heavier themes, a little bit more, deeper than the average slasher movie, if you will. So I've already got a little bit of anticipation for The Power just based on where it is and the what video it's coming in from as a recommendation and what Sarah said about it. But I try not to get too biased or anything like that going to these movies. I try to be as fresh as possible. So I didn't look anything up beyond what Sarah had told me, and it is worth noting the British 2021 version of The Power, not the Indian 2021 version of The Power. I didn't fall for that mostly because of what Sarah had given me in the description, so I didn't mess that up. But we're talking about that one because there are a couple different movies called The Power. So we've been getting that a lot lately, honestly, on this series. A lot of movies that are have a lot of movies of the same name. So make sure you get the right one. But I did, and then I watched it without knowing anything about it other than what Sarah had said. And did I like it? Did I hate it? Well, why don't we get into the review of it right now? Like I said, the movie we're talking about is The Power. The Power came out in 2021, and again is the UK version, not the Indian version. And it's an interesting movie because it's taking place in the past, and it's commenting on UK ideas or events that happened historically, but is tackling themes that are important and have relevancy now today, although they also arguably had relevancy back in the 70s. But it's an interesting take to set this movie in the past to tackle themes that are currently at the forefront of consciousness, societal consciousness. Interesting take, but we're going to get into that in just a second. First, if you haven't seen the movie before, it takes place in 1974 London, and it's about a young trainee nurse who is assigned to a hospital. It's her first night at the hospital, and she's been tasked with staying overnight on the night crew during a time period where there is a miners' strike in the UK that is forcing Britain to conserve power by shutting off the power overnight. And so the hospital will be without power for the evening, and our protagonist doesn't do so well in the dark. And of course, supernatural hijinks abound as mysteries unfold, and I won't go any farther than that so as to not spoil the movie. But the movie is an interesting setup, and it's probably one of my favorite things about the movie is this setup, this notion that the current political situation due to a miners' strike and the government not wanting to bend to the demands of the union is causing everybody to have to do without power in the evenings. It's a fascinating setup, and it is true. I looked it up, and it is a real thing that actually happened multiple times, actually, in the UK history in the 70s. But in specific, 1974 is what we're talking about here. And I'm going to come back to that in just a little bit, but I liked that they took a real-world historical event and used it as the premise for a horror movie. Clever, and I liked it. what it did is it allowed them to come up with a setting that was really genuinely creepy. Hospitals in general are already kind of a creepy setting, so much so that we're going to do a whole hospital subgenre for the horror movie supplement. So you've already got kind of an inherently creepy setup, and then you take the power out. You just plunge it into darkness, and you've set yourself up for a really creepy good time. And it is probably the biggest strength of this movie, because the movie has a really strong visual look with all of the shadows and the light sources being like individualized and unique and compartmentalized, and most of the frame being shadowed. It really works very good to set a certain mood, to set a certain sense of unease or disquietness. And I'm going to credit the director, Karina Faith, for this. She does an excellent job with the visual aesthetic of this movie. Now, I understand this is Karina Faith's first feature directorial. She was a writer-director. It was her first feature debut. She's done some shorts and some other stuff, I think some TV work, but this is her first movie. And the look of the movie is fabulous. She really nails the aesthetic, the creepiness. She gives the movie a certain tone that is just like you're waiting for that other shoe to fall. You know something's going to go wrong. You know there's something in the dark, and you're waiting for it to go. And it kind of works really well, hands in hand with this impending mystery that you know is coming. The mystery is, going to be unraveling as the movie goes on. And the way that the whole frame of the movie is shrouded in darkness is like kind of an analogy almost for the story being shrouded in mystery. It's a really nice visual connection to how the story is going to unfold. And I got to give Karina Faith a lot of credit for that. Again, for a first-time director, it's just a really nice touch to be able to tie your visuals and your aesthetics into the story so well. And she's just got a good eye. Some of the shots in this movie just look really, really wonderful. She's just got a really great shot composition that just make the movie's just really good to look at. It's really, really nice. It is hands down the best part of the movie. The other thing I really want to credit is the strong lead performance by Rose Williams, who I'm not really familiar with. I guess she's probably most famous for a show on the CW called Rain, which is apparently the only CW show that I never watched. I'm not familiar with it, and she's done some other TV stuff too. She's a British actress. I don't really know her, but she is good in this movie, and it's important because her character is affable. She's got this innate affability. She is likable. You kind of are rooting for her right off the bat, and I think there's just something about this actress that is just something like that you connect to, that you just like her and you're sympathizing with her, and you sympathize with her throughout the movie, even though as the hijinks start coming in and the scares start coming in and the mystery starts unraveling and the twists and turns happen. There is points where this character should be less sympathetic, and you could run the risk of even turning on the character, and you don't. And I'm going to give the credit to Rose Williams because I think that she kind of keeps this character centered and keeps her sympathetic, and you still connect to her. And it's particularly noteworthy because I do think the character is a little thin, especially at the beginning. You're given this character, you know very little about her. You know that she's timid and kind of quiet and a little intimidated by everything. And it's her first day in the job. And as the movie goes on, you start to get little hints about her background and what's going on with her. But it kind of comes late in the game, quite a bit late. And so the fact that you like her and that you frankly give a damn about her, even though you're given very little reason to do so, is a testament to the actress pulling this off with maybe scant material or less, less substance than she should have to be able to pull this off. So I'm going to give that credit to Rose. Everybody else in the movie is doing perfectly fine. However, a lot of the other characters, basically just about every other character in this movie, is just really antagonistic and just they're not nice. Every single person that this protagonist meets is a terrible person. And like a lot of them are just like openly hostile right off the bat. And I lived in the 70s, man. People weren't just like openly mean all the time. And it is where the movie has a big problem, and that is in its story and script. Basically right off the bat, our lead actor, our lead story nurse, is just surrounded by people that are, to varying levels or degrees, not good people. Like, just surrounded by it. And it's just kind of like frustrating because you almost like your lead character just because she's just being kind of picked on right and left. But at the same time, like, you kind of want her to like stand up for herself a little bit, and it takes a long time before we get to that kind of thing, before the hijinks start coming out, and it does even out as the movie goes on. This issue is not as bad as the movie goes on, but it starts out with just everybody being just kind of an ass, frankly, and it really is indicative of where my biggest issue with the movie is, which is the writing. Honestly, like, the direction by Karina Faith is really excellent. The writing is mediocre. I'm going to be honest. The story is kind of rote. It's a little obvious. Like, the mystery is not terribly hard to suss out. You'll probably get it fairly early in the movie, earlier than the movie thinks you're going to get it, for sure. And that's not a big deal. The fact that I'm ahead of the mystery isn't so bad. And I really like the cool idea of this hospital setting being in the dark and everything. But the flip side is, while it inspired me to do some research on UK history in terms of the miners' strikes and stuff like that, it also showed me what I suspected, which is the hospital wouldn't have been without power. It would have been considered essential. It wouldn't have been one of the things that got shut off during the 3-day work week or whatever they called it back then. The hospital wouldn't have been in the dark. And so that was something that was nagging at me throughout the whole movie, was that why would the hospital be in the dark? Even with this historical... At first I thought the historical thing might have been made up because this seemed implausible. No, the historical thing is true. But the hospital probably would have been considered one of the essential things that was not turned off, like all the other businesses that were. So right off the bat, you're kind of having that issue where I'm kind of having a hard time suspending my disbelief. But because of the aesthetic, I'm kind of rolling with it anyways, and I'll give the movie its premise. Not a big deal. But then when you've got this mystery that's a little easy to solve, you've got all these antagonists that are just kind of just blatant, like paper thin, surface level antagonists that just hostile and angry without really any nuance to it. It's a little disappointing because this whole movie is building towards a double entendre of the title, The Power. It's got the obvious meaning about the power being out, but it's also about the power of the patriarchy and the power of classism, and it's not subtle, man. This double entendre is a little bit clunky. Like, to quote Rupert Giles, the subtext rapidly becomes text. Quite literally, at one point, a character literally spells this out. He literally says, "I have the power here," and it's almost groan-worthy, if I'm being honest with you, because it felt like that scene in Insidious 2 where you see the door open and Lin Shaye's like, "Oh, so that's what that was all about," just in case like the audience was too dumb to get it on their own. Or like when Kevin Spacey says "become wrath" at the end of 7. You know what I mean? It's like, you don't have to spoon feed your audience that much. And at that point, when the characters literally explain to him the power dynamics in the movie, rather than just letting the audience like absorb the fact that you've got this double entendre, really was a little bit of a disappointment. It was like it didn't trust me to piece this together. And frankly, it was really kind of hammering it home fairly obviously and bluntly earlier in the movie. It's not subtle with it. The double entendre, the message, the social message of, the abuse of power and sexual abuse and things like that. Again, it's obvious in the movie. It's earlier than you want it to be in the mystery. And it's a little heavy-handed, man. It's just a little heavy-handed. It lacks the nuance or the subtlety that I'd like to see in my elevated horror. It's just not quite up to snuff, especially when considering how good the movie looks, how well paced it is, how the aesthetic ties into the themes a little bit, and how the theme of a mystery and trying to shed some light on the things that are happening in this facility. It's really great from a visual perspective, from a directing perspective. It's just really, really great. But the script just needed some work. It's not bad. It just falls short. And in comparison to the directing, it's an unfortunate miss. So what wins out? Does the directing and the solid acting performances win out over the script that falls short, or does it torpedo its chances? Let's find out. So is the Power 2021 from the UK syllabus worthy? The answer is maybe, but definitely not for elevated horror. The elevated horror movies are exceptional. They are really a cut above your standard horror fare, and it would be tough for any movie to crack that list because those movies stand out as exceptional works of art, frankly. And while The Power on an aesthetic and directorial level kind of holds its own with those movies, from a story level, from a script level, it just does not. If we're talking about it in straight elevated horror terms, it misses the mark. It's not syllabus worthy. It just is. It's a no from me, dog. But for other subgenres, this might be a really good fit. For example, we have a whole UK subgenre, and I think this movie would be an excellent addition to the UK horror subgenre because it is all premised on an actual UK historical event. That the movie prompted me to go do some historical research because I needed to know the details about this miners' strike and if it was real and if the turning off the power thing was real and how it all resolved and how long it lasted and all that stuff. So this movie makes an excellent entry into UK horror because it is decidedly very UK in its origins, in its premise. So, in that sense, it might be a really good candidate for the horror movie syllabus. And then also I mentioned earlier, we're doing a subgenre now on the horror movie supplement for hospitals. And it uses the hospital setting very, very well. It really does a good job of leveraging its setting, especially in the dark of it. But even without the dark, just the way the hospital is run, the politics of it, the personnel that would be there at nighttime, the patients that are at risk and need to be cared for. It really leveraged that hospital setting really well. So there's two subgenres right there that it is really eminently qualified to sit into. So again, elevated horror, it's a no. For UK, probably a yes. Hospitals, maybe, only because there's a lot of other things, a lot of other hospital set horror movies. But the point being, maybe. Could I bump a UK horror movie for this one? Maybe. And yeah, like I said, the script is a little bit of a disappointment, but darn, it's really well directed and it looks really, really good. Corinna Faith is a talented director. Average writer, maybe her writing's going to get better. Maybe she could have a partner to write with. But she's got an eye. She's got an eye. She's got a sense for pacing. She's got a sense for drawing performances out that I think is talented. And I would be interested in seeing what she does next. I'd like to see her direct somebody else's script. I would be curious to see that. And I would recommend this movie for the filmmaking and the performances. Again, the story... Again, it's not going to get you, you're not going to be mad about it. I don't think you're going to feel like you wasted your time with the story. The story is perfectly fine. I'm betting you'll guess the mystery and solve the mystery earlier than the movie does. But it's really a good looking movie. It really gives some really strong performances. Rose Williams is really good in it. I'd be curious to see her do other stuff. But it's definitely a recommend and it's a maybe for the syllabus. So I'm kind of hedging a little bit there, but it's kind of a hard one to nail down because there's some stuff about it I absolutely loved. There's some stuff about it that I was a little disappointed by. So it balances out. Maybe it squeaks by. Speaking of squeaking, can I squeak by without giving another horror trivia pursuit answer? The answer is no, I cannot. It's time to break out that horror trivia pursuit card. And in this case, because there is a clear supernatural aspect to the power, we're going to go with the supernatural category on the card. And the question is, for what 1976 film did composer Jerry Goldsmith win an Oscar? I do not know the answer to this question, and I'm pretty sure that this is going to be a situation where I'm going to wind up embarrassing myself. And that sucks because I've been on a streak of getting things right and feeling really good about myself with these things. And this is one where I'm going to fall short. I know Jerry Goldsmith is a composer. He's not what I'd call one of my favorites. He's no John Williams, for example. You know what I mean? But he is a well-known composer. And I know he's done a lot of stuff. And I'm even familiar with some of the stuff he's done. Like, for example, I know he did Alien. He did the music for Alien. But Alien's 1979, so it's not the answer here. And I guess I'm giving you a little bit of hint there. But I'm kind of like working it out in my head. I'm kind of, maybe I shouldn't be speaking so much about it, but like, I know he's done a lot of stuff, but I'm not familiar with everything that he's done. And I know I'm going to get this wrong. And like the year, I'm trying to think what came out around that time. and I'm not always super great with the years of horror movies, Alien notwithstanding. But I'm just I don't know. I know I'm going to get this wrong, and I feel like I'm going to be embarrassed by this. And hey, I'm giving you guys some time to think about it too. But I'm kind of going. I've got two thoughts in my head, and as you guys kind of lock in your answer here, because I'm going to start speaking out loud about what I'm going to guess. And I have two thoughts in my head, right? And so one is Planet of the Apes, because I know he did Planet of the Apes. I'm like 95% sure he did Planet of the Apes. But the Planet of the Apes is like the 60s, but it goes into the 70s, right? Because there's a whole series of them. But I don't know if he does all of them. I don't know if he does the music for all of them. And so, like, I'm kind of thinking of this thing, Planet of the Apes, but then I'm also thinking Planet of the Apes is sci-fi. It's not really horror, so would it be on the horror trivia pursuit card? I don't know. And then the other one is like, did he do The Exorcist? I don't know. I feel like he did The Exorcist, but I don't know. And so like I'm not sure, but so I'm either gonna go with Planet of the Apes or The Exorcist, and I think I'm gonna go with The Exorcist because it's an actual horror movie, and I know it came in the '70s, but I think it did. I don't think it came out. I don't think it came out. I think it came out later. I think it came out later, but I'm gonna stick with Exorcist. I always talk myself out of the answers. I'm sticking with Exorcist. I'm going with Exorcist. It's my final answer. Let's see what the card says. The Omen. Ugh. The Omen. I should have gotten this. I did not, off the top of my head, think of Jerry Goldsmith as doing The Omen, but I was thinking of The Exorcist, and I should have been thinking of The Omen. I now I'm convinced he did not do The Exorcist, which came later. He did The Omen, and my mind was trying to give me The Omen, but I was coming up with The Exorcist. That's what happened. Man. Okay. So I'm embarrassed by that. Did you get it right? If you got it right, let me know. And if you got it wrong, please tell me you said The Exorcist like me, so I don't have to be alone in my shame. That sucks. I was wrong, but hey, what are you going to do? We're all friends here, and you know what? I don't know everything. That's why I like you guys coming into the comments and sharing your knowledge on horror too. We've been in this little community, and in the comments you're sharing with me movies I've never seen before, like The Power, which I did have a really good time with. So thank you, Sarah, for that, and thank you guys for these recommendations. Going through these has been a lot of fun, and I hope you guys are enjoying hanging out with me while we check them out, because it's just fun. It's fun talking about these with you guys after I watch them, and so keep those recommendations coming. But until next week, when we do something different, class dismissed.